Hi YouTube and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a minute for me to have posted anything other than a bunch of shorts about my sci-fi story on Kindle Vella, and I've kind of fallen behind on that, so long story there. Maybe I'll get to it later, but today is my 5-year anniversary of starting testosterone. So can you believe it? It's been 5 years since I started my transition. I'll put a link to the playlist below of all of my transition videos for anyone who's interested in catching up and is new here. But other than that, yep, it's been 5 years and not too much has changed now in the last year. I do have a little bit more scruff. I think that's the biggest change that I'm noticing still, is that I'm getting the facial hair is filling in more over time still, so which is kind of cool. Voice hasn't really changed any in forever now, so I think this is the voice I got. Take it or leave it. Other than that, I still have my hair. That was, I think, my biggest worry about going on testosterone, that my hair, because I am in middle-aged, I am in my 50s now, I was afraid that my hair would just go which has happened to a lot of other trans guy friends of mine who are my age. They went on testosterone and their hair just kind of went, and which surprises me because both of my grandparents, as far as my or grandfathers, my mom's dad was definitely bald. He was bald the entire time I ever knew him when I was a child, and I've been told by my relatives that my father's dad also was balding before he passed away, so I was expecting my hair to go. The fact that I'm 51 now and it's actually thicker and more there than it was when I was before I transitioned, so you know, I I am not going to complain about this whatsoever. This is great. Um, Other than that, like I am what I am, and I look how I look, and I'm very happy with where I'm at. To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, yeah, I've got some hair on my butt and my back and stuff that a lot of guys lament about, but other than that, I really have nothing to complain about. I am very happy with where my transition has taken me and where I'm at, um, and with all of the negative rhetoric out there about trans people and all the irreversible damages that can happen, and I see a lot. I see, like, there are a few very vocal detransitioners out there who are like myself, female to male FTM, which are kind of outdated terms now, but people are aware, are know what that means. So anyway, but for people who have detransitioned, who thought that they were trans and thought that transitioning would help them with whatever issues they were going through, and then obviously it felt wrong for them, and so they detransitioned, which I think is statistically, out of all the people who transition, about 0.5% detransition, and out of that 0.5%, I believe it's something like 70 or 80% of those eventually do return to transition, and a lot of the detransitioning happens because of social pressure, family pressure, etc., threats against their lives, threats against whatever, and so a lot of people will detransition because they just don't feel safe, and then later on do move forward and go back and transition anyway. Not that I want to go too deep into that topic and stuff, but there are a couple of people out there that have been very vocal about their detransition and how their going on testosterone had been terrible. They have no sex life anymore, that they were losing their hair, which of course, like I said, that was a worry of mine. A lot of things were, they found the entire experience to be very, very negative, and apparently claimed that they were never informed about all of this stuff, which, if that is true, I'm not saying it's not, if that is true, then that is on their medical provider's fault, that they were not informing their patient, and that's horrible. I personally did a lot of research on my own before I even went forward and talked to medical professionals about things or sought therapy and everything. And in Colorado, I mean, I had, in order to have my insurance cover things, I had to have a year's worth of therapy and living as my preferred gender before even considering going through the medical and taking testosterone. And then they wouldn't even cover surgery for me until I was at least a year on testosterone, and an additional year of therapy, before I could even talk to anyone about any kind of surgeries. And I had all my surgeries back in 2019. And so, it was quite a process to get everything done and taken care of and stuff. So if in my endocrinologist, that I ended up getting appointments with and stuff, and I still see him every 6 months, to make sure that my blood work is looking good, to make sure I'm remaining healthy, that I'm not having any negative effects on anything, because you can have increased blood pressure, and you can have like thickening of the red blood cells and things, and so you can have potential heart issues. I mean, there are health risks with doing this, and I was aware of this going into that even before I even met the endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist still sat me down and made sure that I was aware of all of the risks associated with this before moving forward. And we started with a smaller dose, increased the dose over time, just kind of like did all of the due diligence that one should do when approaching something like this. And I can't speak for trans women and their process, because obviously they're going in the other direction, and they have their own process and stuff, and so I'm only going to speak about my experience. And my experience is the experience that I think you want to have as a trans guy, that you have medical professionals that are willing to sit down with you and talk to you, and like, even whether you've done research or not. And I honestly think if you're going to go through something this radical, I mean, it is somewhat radical on many different levels and things, but if you're going to go forward with something like this, you want to do some research, and the information is out there. It's on the internet. There are published studies you can read, and if that is a little bit too medical scientific for you, then there are articles and things that break things down and simplify it and make things understandable, no matter what your reading and comprehension levels are. But the research is out there, and the fact that people don't do the research before transitioning and then regret it, and then also end up finding doctors who apparently are very negligent in their duties in terms of things. Either that, or these people are fibbing and claiming that their doctors didn't say anything, when in fact it's entirely possible. And I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying that this is what happened, but there is the slight possibility that they might have been warned about all of the negative effects and went forward anyway and ignored it, and thinking, oh, this won't happen to me because it didn't happen to other trans guys. It has happened to some trans guys, but some of us would rather transition and deal with the consequences than not, because of how we're born. Okay. So, and I just went on a little rant. All this stuff is going on all this legislation. I am so grateful that I'm in Colorado, where my rights and my health care and everything is protected. Our governor actually signed into law some additional protections for us because of everything that's going on everywhere else, and I am so grateful that I live in a place where I feel safe. I don't even know what I would do if I lived in a state where I wasn't safe, or where my healthcare was ripped away from me. I am far enough along in my transition where all of the changes are pretty much permanent. If I went off testosterone now, and if that was just, yanked away from me and I wasn't able to take it anymore, then um, most of my changes would remain in place. I wouldn't. My facial hair might thin out a little bit, but even that's not going to go away. My voice is permanently changed. Um, the main thing is my libido would probably change. My libido increased quite a bit uh, on starting testosterone, and it would probably go back to where it was before. Which that wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, it would kind of suck, but um, I could live with that. So I mean, I am privileged in many ways where I now come across as a guy, um, and so when I meet people in public, if they don't know me from before I transitioned, they take me. They see a man, and so like and I'm a white guy, so I'm about as privileged as you can get at this point. Although I will say I'm still nervous using bathrooms because you never know if you run into some asshole who wants to question why you went into the stall to sit down and pee. Because it's kind of hard to disguise the fact that I'm sitting down and peeing and not doing anything else. I can't fake doing other things. So like, and so I do like single-use bathrooms if I can find them. Sorry for the jump cut. My dog decided to bark at something random, and I had to go deal with that. So anyway, enough about all the political crap going on out there. I think I've said my piece on all that. What else has been going on in my life since it's been a while? I announced last year about my autism diagnosis, and so I've had a year to kind of, or a year and a half now to kind of digest all of that, and it's helped me, one, make more sense of my life before I got diagnosed, and I no longer have to sit around obsessing about why I behaved in a certain way because, oh, it's because I'm autistic. Okay, and so it helps me not sit around and obsess about things that I shouldn't really need to be obsessing about. So there's that. And also, like, as I'm living my life now, I am more informed about my behavior, and I'm like, oh, I'm being autistic right now. That's, excuse me, I'm sorry for, how I'm acting right now. This is my autistic trait, and it's helped me get past a few things. Like sometimes in the past, especially on the internet, I would get into loops of debates and things, and not realizing that I was being kind of having a kind of an obsessive thing with my autism, and now I'm realizing, and I'm kind of letting myself get out of these loops, and stop obsessing about something like, oh, wait a minute, this is not healthy for me or for the interaction I'm having, and so it's helping me end these things a lot sooner than they used to in the past. So it's had a number of positive effects in terms of my overall mental health and things. Just realize how my autism is affecting my behavior and going forward with that. So anyway, however, health-wise, this last year, one of my big issues that I've been dealing with, I mean, I've had problems with this for a long time. So bottom line, back pain, neck pain and back pain, or just spinal pain. For the last 15-20 years, I have had issues off and on. I for the longest time, I had pain literally right here in my shoulder, and I used to go to urgent care, and they would give me muscle relaxants, which would sometimes help a little bit, and then usually I would just have to wait, and it would eventually go away on its own. And then earlier this year, it got really bad. It got bad enough where it was actually shooting into my head. One doctor thought I was having migraines, but it was actually all connected to all of the pain and the tension just going and just translating up into my head and into my face, and making my face feel weird, almost like I had like a Novocaine shot. So it was almost numb, but not quite, and it was just weird. And I just kept going to different doctors, and everyone was like, oh, you're having a migraine, oh, you need muscle relaxants, oh, let's give you a lidocaine shot, which didn't work, let's give you a Toradol shot, which didn't work, just all this different stuff, and nothing was working. And then finally one guy that I saw, he was a PA, physician's assistant, that I saw, and he was like, you know what, that sounds like you might have spinal stenosis. Which I didn't know what that meant at the time. He said, let's get an MRI of your neck. I'd had an MRI of my head before, and everything was inconclusive, whatever, but not of the neck itself. And we went and had that done, and sure enough, I have spinal stenosis, which the discs. Let's see, you have the discs, and you have the I always forget the name of it, the bone part of your spine. I am so bad with names, always have been. But you know what I mean. Is you've got the bones, you've got the spongy discs in between, and everything. And the name will come to me in a second. But anyway, the bone part, with stenosis. So you've got the bone part, you've got your spinal. I know what that looks like. Take your mind out of the gutter. So bone, and you've got your spinal cord going through the bone. Well, with stenosis, there's a thickening of the bone, and it tightens up around the spinal column, and I've got a couple of discs in my neck that are flattening the spinal column, and that's probably where this pain came from. Although, funny story, when 2 days before I was scheduled to have the MRI, I was not paying attention when I was going down the stairs. I was distracted by my dog, and I missed a step. And my step has like 2 landings. So you go up the stairs, and there's a landing, and then there's up a small set of stairs, and there's another landing, and then up the rest of the way. And so I was going down the short part of the stairs onto the second landing coming down, and missed a step, and I fell, and I slammed into the wall, and I hit my head and this whole side of my body, and might have had like a very mild concussion, and stuff, but I was fine. But the neck pain went away. It hasn't come back yet. It's been, and after 15 years of suffering from this neck shoulder pain issue, who knew I just needed a good crack in the neck? And I used to see a chiropractor. I used to see a chiropractor very regularly, and he used to adjust my neck all the time. But even then, that shoulder pain would still not go away. So maybe he just wasn't a very good chiropractor. I don't know. But yeah, so that happened. But the neck pain's gone. This is great. But because of that flattening of the spinal cord, my primary doctor was like, you know what, I'm a little concerned about this. Let me refer you to a neurosurgeon just to take a look, and just, hey, is this a concern? Do we have anything we need to watch out for? That kind of thing. And it took about 2-3 months to get back to hear back from the neurosurgeon. In the meantime, I slept wrong one night, and all of a sudden I started having pain in my back. It was stemming from my lower back, from my lumbar, and it wasn't it wasn't going down the back of the leg. Instead, the pain was going around my hip and around the front of my leg, and so and there's another word I can't remember, but the pain in that most people get, it starts with an S too. most people who have this pain probably know what I'm talking about. But anyway, but it usually starts in the lower back and runs in the back of your leg. And mine didn't do that. Mine went around the other way, and so my doctor was like, "Okay, you're clearly in a lot of pain," because I was struggling to even get out of bed. It was that bad. And I had a friend of mine who had a friend of mine drive me to the doctors because I couldn't even drive. It hurt so much, and everything. And so they were like, "Let's send you to physical therapy because you just had an MRI. We can't schedule you for another MRI until you get physical therapy. The insurance just isn't going to cover it." So fine. So I went and did physical therapy, and the physical therapist was like, "Oh yeah, where you're describing that pain, that's because it's the L2 or L3, because the pain was um translating, not translating, but coming from basically the L3 and L2 nerves in my lumbar, but then when it got really bad, it would go all the way around my leg, which is where the nerve travels. And so for the last 3-ish months, I've been struggling a lot with that. Hardly able to walk, and when I was walking, I was in pain, and it took a good 4 or 5 weeks to figure out a good pain management strategy. We tried heat helped a little bit, and so I was wearing heating pads a lot. Tried muscle relaxants. That was the first thing that they gave me, was some I want to call it is it Valium? I think it's Valium. And that helped a little bit. They gave me lidocaine patches, which I don't think helped at all. And so we kept trying different things. And then when the physical therapist told me that this is clearly nerve pain, my first thought was like, well, why don't we try something that's sort of, because muscle, it wasn't a muscle thing, it was a nerve thing. So I remember having gabapentin for the nerve pain in my chest when I had my top surgery. So I was like, can we try that? And so we've been experimenting with dosages of that, and then also using Celebrex as well, which is a prescription anti-inflammatory, because Tylenol wasn't working, and I don't want to use ibuprofen because of my liver issues. So I was like, okay, let's do that for now. And eventually I was able to get rid of the Celebrex entirely as I was ramping up with the gabapentin. We tried 300 milligrams and then ramped up to 600, and now I'm at 900. And that seems to be the right dosage. 900 milligrams once a day. I take it right before bed because it makes me really loopy and knocks me out. So it's really good to get me to sleep. So I take it before bed, go to bed. And now for the last, I'd say 4 or 5 days, I have been almost pain-free. I've had a little bit of soreness and stuff, and I have tried walking the dogs a couple of times, and I've got to be careful how far I go, otherwise it starts hurting. But at least I've got that under control, so thank goodness. And I'm seeing the neurosurgeon next week, and so hopefully we can kind of like, okay, I'll, like, hey, I've got the pain management under control, but is this a sustainable solution? Like, because I do have liver issues, and so I am worried about being on gabapentin indefinitely and that doing more damage to my liver. So we need to like talk about, like, is this a good strategy going forward, or are there other things I can do? And the one thing I don't want to do is surgery, because everyone that I know that's ever had back pain and spinal issues, they complain about, like, once they have one surgery, they end up with a dozen surgeries because it just never seems to work and never seems to help any, and they're still in pain years later. And so I'm like, you know what, I really don't want to go on that cycle of one surgery after another. If it's not going to help, then why bother? Like, that's my thinking. So unless there's a clear a clear way of doing it, and it's like, yes, this will definitely, I don't know. I'm gonna try anything and everything else first before I even consider surgery. Let's put it that way. But you know, stenosis was the main thing in the neck, and there is also stenosis in the lower back. I also have osteophytes, which are like spiky things that grow out of the bone, which can also dig into muscles and nerves and everything. I've got degenerating discs. I've got dehydrating discs. I've got just overall degeneration of everything. Uh, Basically, my back is a mess. It has been for a long time. It's one of the reasons why I hire people to do my yard work, and I hire people to come by and clean up the dog poop in my backyard, and I have a Roomba to vacuum for me, because all of these things make my back hurt, and have for a long time. And it's just gotten to a point where it's even worse than it used to be. So I'm having to deal with that and stuff, and hopefully, you know, we can get to a place where I'm good, and I'm good right now with the gabapentin. I'm just worried about taking that long term. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, you know, one step at a time. We've got the pain managed. You know, is this a sustainable solution or not? Anyhow, so that's basically where I'm at health wise. Everything else health wise for me is good. I'm great otherwise. Thank goodness. Besides all that, so the only other news I've got, since you know I don't make videos very often, so they're gonna be longer. So thanks for bearing with me. But for anyone who follows me in terms of books and reading, and if you've been following all my books and stuff, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your support. I think there's one book that I've mentioned off and on since I started writing fiction back in 2015. That there was a sci-fi book that I was writing called Artifact of the Dawn, and it is now officially available on Kindle Vella. It's not complete yet. It will complete in August. So if you really, really want to read this book already, you can go on Kindle Vella and read it. There'll be a link down below. Or if you are outside of the US, or you don't want to support Amazon, or you don't like the whole idea of buying tokens and spending tokens to unlock chapters and stuff, which is how Kindle Vella works. It's a serialized story platform. I am also releasing it as a serialized story on Medium, so there'll be a link to that one down below as well, so you can read it there. And with Medium, you get to read 3 articles or stories or chapters for free, and then after that you have to be a paid member, and it's like $5 a month or $10 a year. So if you really do want to read it that way, there's a link at the bottom of any of my chapters where you can sign up through an affiliate link with me, and I will actually get benefit from that. I actually will get half of your however you're paying. So I will get half of that. So, you know, if you want to support me that way. Otherwise, in September, the book will come out. In September, I will be releasing the ebook on Amazon, and I will also be releasing a hard copy. There will be a hard copy available on Amazon, and I'm also going to be releasing a hard copy through Ingram Spark, which I think will distribute to bookstores and Barnes & Noble and that kind of thing. So I'm still working out the details of that. So that will be coming in September. And then if you like paperback instead of hardcover, I will be releasing that 6 months after the hardcover comes out, because I'm gonna treat this like a professional book and release things the way a lot of authors, you know, the more traditional authors release things, where the hardcover usually comes first and then the paperback. Although I am releasing the ebook along with the hardcover, because a lot of people tend to just read the ebooks anyway. So I'm not gonna hurt myself by not releasing the ebook right away. So keep an eye out for that in September. If you're not following me on social media, I've got my social media links down below as well. And I will be announcing it across all my social media platforms when it's available for pre-order and all of that kind of stuff. That's all gonna come down the road. I believe the pre-order will also be available sometime in September as well. So just keep an eye out for all those announcements and everything. And I'll try to maybe post a video about that at the time. And tell me if you're still watching. Did you like those individual episode little short videos I was posting on here on my channel for Artifact of the Dawn? If you did, let me know. Leave a comment, and maybe I'll start that up again. I just kind of fell out of it because of all of the health issues I was dealing with my back and everything else. I was in too much pain to even climb upstairs to go to my office, which I'm in now. And so I was spending a lot of time just on my laptop, and I don't have all of my editing software down there, so it's been a whole thing. It's been a year, let me tell you. But I'm finally feeling well enough that I can be in my office and I can film up here and I can edit and I can do other things. So if you're still watching this very, very long video, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know there aren't going to be a lot of you, but thank you so much, and leave comments, ask me questions, and I will, probably do another video at some point eventually. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.